going through the assignments that are up on Canvas. So due by the end of day today for full credit without getting dinged for any late credit is the quiz for lesson 1. There is no time limit. You have 2 chances to take it. You don't have to take it a second time if you're pleased with the first grade that you got. You have, though, until September 22nd to hand that in. So for every day late, it's just 1 point. But try to get it in today if you can. Remember that quizzes and projects are 40% of your grade. So before you do any other work, make sure that you get the quiz done. If you take it during class and you have a question, you don't quite get it, get my attention. I'll be more than happy to help you on any of the questions that are on that. So don't be shy of that. You can do it at home. You can do it on your phone. There is no time limit. Match a proverb to an image. Most all of you have gotten that in. That too is due by the end of day today. That one as well, you have until September 22nd to get that in. Minimum just 1 image, 1 layer of text. That's all it has to be. Nothing too complicated. What I'm really looking for most is that you have matched conceptually the image to that proverb. Again, during lab, if you have any questions or need a little help, get my attention. Book exercise for lesson 3. We did that last week. That's the little shadow box where we applied all of our selection tools. We also learned a new tool in that lesson is the crop tool. So when you're done, that piece should be cropped. Now, you can, if you want to, create separate layers, but really, all you'll end up is with 1 flat layer of that. If you do them in multiple layers, that's fine as well. You won't get any points taken off, but 1 layer is all you really need for that. That is due September 22nd. You have until September 29th. The quiz for making selections, lesson 3, I just posted this today, is due September 24th. You have until September 29th. So we're starting to get into the time management that I talked about the first week in class, where you really have to manage your time. The book exercises are only 10% of your grade. So if you're going to choose, remember to do the quizzes and the projects first if you're having any sort of time crunch. Today I'm going to do the demonstration for the next project that we have that's coming up that relates to exactly what we just did in lesson 3. I'm going to go over that in a second. And it's creating a composite image from a flat image. It's exactly what we've just been doing the past week and a half. So with that, I'm just going to start by clicking on this and go through some of the things that are in here. You're going to probably want to read this ahead of or after I go through it just to kind of get to it. I don't like spending a ton of time just reading things that you can read, right? There's plenty of time for you to read, digest, and if you have any questions, ask me during lab or bring them up at the beginning of next class. So notice at the very top of this, I've got 3 possible files that you can download. You're going to have a choice of what you want to do as far as the artwork for your piece. So there's the vegetables files that I did as one of the class demos. There's the seashell files that you're going to recognize as very similar to all of the items that were in lesson 3. And then there's a new one that's called Southern Tier. This is an actual brand that one of my friends in my hometown is the graphic designer, like the art director and graphic designer for this company that's based in the town that I grew up in and that I'm from. So that's the one I'm going to use for the demonstration today, because we've already kind of learned some of the other tools for both the vegetables and the seashells. So whichever one you choose, you're just going to click the download and it's going to download it into your download folder on the Finder. If you don't know where the download folder is, you're going to come to Finder and then come to Downloads, and you'll see your files here. So I just downloaded all 3 of them this morning. There they are right there. So just click that button and it'll download into that folder. So the objective of this is this project will build your skills in Photoshop selections and adjustments. I'm going to start to introduce some of the adjustment layers that you can use in Photoshop, right? So adjustment layers are things like brightness and contrast, hue and saturation, adjusting the curves, any kind of adjustment that you can do to a specific layer. Anytime you see the word layer attached to something, that means that adjustment just applies to that layer. Adjustment layers are also non-destructive. That means you could turn them on and turn them off. You're going to take a flat image, that's an image with no layers, and use Photoshop selection tools to isolate and separate objects into new individual layers. Exactly what we did last week. From these separated elements, you will design a thoughtful composite image that includes a source background image. Now, this source background image could be anything that you shoot on your own with your phone, if you have a camera, if you're taking any class here, or you can just download it from like Google Images, from Getty Images. If you sign up for a Getty Image account, I use Getty Images for my own personal work. That means I purchase images from Getty Images to use. So if I want to use a background or something from Getty Images, they're going to ask me, how large do you want this? So if I'm going to print this, they're going to charge me more than if it's just going to be something for digital. They're going to say, how many people? What's the range of this promotion that you're going to use? Is it a local campaign or is it a national campaign? So they have an algorithm to figure out how much they're going to charge me. You can go to gettyimages.com and as a student, sign up for an account and sign up for an account as a student. Now, the images that you're going to download aren't going to be high res. They're going to be kind of low res, but there's ways that you can work with those images. Sometimes you don't need a full-blown image. You just maybe want something as an object. So I recommend going to gettyimages.com and create a profile so you can download images. It's probably one of the most elaborate stock photography sites that's available. They have just about anything. Now, there is some things where if you try to use like people, say if you were trying to say find an image of Josh Allen, those are rights reserved. But if you were just to try to find an image of a group of tomatoes on a white background, those aren't. So like people are a little bit different than just objects. Or you can say a kitchen background with a stainless steel counter type of thing, and they'll pull up tons of them. So you're going to have to source some background image. You can also add as many other images to this as you want. I'm going to look for you to create a really artistic type of piece. So you may also use additional images to enhance your design. This project emphasizes technical skill. Again, it's an art class, so creativity. I can make this a little bit bigger for you in the back. Let me just, so you can see a little bit better. Creativity and precision while reinforcing the workflow of moving from a flat file to a layered composition. Okay, so that kind of tells what it's about. I give you the project requirements, how to start. So begin with a flat Photoshop layer or image. That's what I am giving you. This file contains no layers. Selections and layers. You're going to use all of the selection tools just like we did last week in class when I did the vegetables. I'm going to do a demonstration again with the second one. Each selected object must be placed on its own layer. I want to see that you're renaming these layers. Don't just let it be layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, etc., etc. Double click on that layer 1 and rename it. So if you're renaming it beer bottle, renaming it logo, whatever it is, let the layer reflect what it is. Keep selections cleaned and refined. Part of this is a selection exercise. So I'm going to look to see how well you've made those selections. Source the background image to unify your composition. So this is where the artistic creativity comes in. The background must connect visually and conceptually to your object layers, right? So you could have it be something like very artistic and off the deep end. You don't have to, say for example, if you're using the vegetable one that we did last week with the cutting board, the the lettuce, the tomatoes. I've had students where they've taken that and made it into a face, into like a vegetable face, like with the head being the lettuce, the eyes being the tomatoes. They bring in other things and they make this very creative kind of piece. So it doesn't have to be so literal. You may use an image to take yourself. Um, you may use an image you take yourself or one that you find online. Excuse me. Composite design, you're going to rearrange and compose this into an artistic layout, integrate the background, apply any adjustment tools, levels, curves, saturation. We're going to go over that today. The technical specifications. The file size is 1800 pixels square, 1800 by 1800. So that tells you that your final piece is going to be in the shape of a square. So that's going to matter as you're looking for your background image, because you want to find something that will fit to that. And if it's a rectangular image, you're going to know that part of that image is going to be cropped off because it's a square. Now, it's very difficult to find a square image, but just keep that in mind as you're searching for your background image. The resolution is 150 dpi or ppi, same thing. Color mode is RGB. So when you see pixels, a lower type of resolution, and RGB, you know that it's only going to be used for a digital monitor type of application. The file format is going to be in a PDF file format. So you're going to upload to Canvas just like we did. I give you a few background image guidelines in here. So a good background will match the style, perspective, or lighting of your objects. So if you have something that looks flat, it's very difficult to create that with a background that has perspective to it. So if you just want to keep it very simple, let's say with the vegetable ones, and you're looking for a background, all of those images look like the camera was above shooting down. So you're not going to want a background that has some sort of perspective unless you're going to change the perspective of your objects. So you're going to want to find a flat looking background. If it was a countertop, you'd want it to make it think that the camera was above shooting down, not one that's looking here that has some perspective. So match the style perspective. Help create a cohesive story. For example, isolated fruit placed into a kitchen scene, not into a desert. Has visual interest. Uses appropriate resolution. So you're not going to want to find a really low resolution file or a very dark lighted file that's going to have to be expanded and start to get pixelated. So you want it to kind of match. The thing is you don't want someone to look at it and say, that's been photoshopped, that's not real. They've composed that together. That's one thing you don't want as a digital artist. You don't want your piece to look like it's been composed. You want it to look like it's very natural and organic. So weak backgrounds, random or unrelated image that doesn't connect to the object, distracting details, low quality, looks pasted without integration. So those are the things that we want to try to avoid. So I'm just going to go over the criteria and you can read through the proficiencies of how you score the points. So I'm going to look for your technical skills. Do you know how to use the selection tools? Are you applying a feather to them, or do they look jagged and cut and hard-edged? So that's going to be 30 points. Time management. Are you handing these in on time? That's what I graded on. Artistic and creative results. Does it look like you thought about it, that you thought about the background that you did and you composed it in an artistic way? And then the third is following specifications. Is it the correct size? Is it the correct color mode? Is it the correct file format? Those things are all super very important when you're in the real world creating digital art. If you submit a digital piece if you're the digital artist and you're submitting them to the person who's designing the website or the social media person who's putting those posts up onto social media, and you supply them in the wrong file format, the wrong resolution, the wrong size, what happens is it stops everything. that social media person gets on the phone with you and says, hey, Alejandro, the file size that you sent to me is incorrect. You got to get it to me by 12 o'clock noon today before it drops. Or if you're at a printer and you send that, now we're not going to be printing, but within the same thing, if you send that file to a printer and they're ready to print it and it's the wrong file size, they're going to stop and take your job and take it right off the press. That means that you're going to be late on your deadline. So that specification is a really important thing when it comes to this type of work that we're doing, digital imaging. So there's a lot of repercussions if you mess that up. Before I begin with the demonstration, any questions on what this project entails? Okay, so we're creating a composite from a flat file. So let's go right into Photoshop. The first thing that I like to do is to create that file that we're going to be using. 1800 by 1800, 150 RGB. A mistake that some people will make is they'll download files, download the background, and just start working from that and realize way too late that they've spent some time and they're not in the right file size. So 1800 by 1800, 150 RGB. Here is the flat file that I downloaded from that exercise, right? So I want to take this and go File New or Command N. You could do it if you haven't opened any files. There's that little blue thing that says New File. So Command N. So remember, you want to be in pixels. We're doing this in pixels. So 1800. I'm going to use my tab key by 1800. I'm going to tab and it's going to come down to 150 and RGB and it's on a white background. Now, anytime that you create a new file within your documents bar at the top, it goes to the very end. That's an important thing to know, okay? Because when we're going to start transferring files, it's a good idea to have this file at the very end of these instead of like the beginning. You'll see why in a second. Okay, so I have I have this Southern tier copy. So if I look at my files, I just want to show you what they are, and then I'm going to close them out. The more files you have open, the slower Photoshop works because that's in its memory. So I don't like to have a ton of files open because depending on your computer, it just might hook up your computer and you're doing something and it might spin and then you have to restart. So this is the vegetable file. If you choose to use the vegetable file, this will be the one. I'm going to close this out, but I just wanted to show you. Here is the flat file for the shells. So you're going to recognize a lot of these because they're the same ones from lesson 3, but it's just composed a little bit differently and it's on this flat file. There's no shadow box at the top. So you can choose to use this one. I'm going to close this one out. Okay, so I also did a search and I could search for a few more. I just did it before while we're waiting in class. So I searched, this is the one we're using. So I'm trying to think in my head, okay, maybe I'm going to create like a social media post, right? I could do that or I could just create something else out of this. So maybe if I am a graphic designer and I'm thinking about portfolio, which if any of you are in this class that art is your major, you should be thinking portfolio with everything you do. Otherwise, it's just wasted time, right? So if anyone here is a digital imaging major, graphic design major, wants to get into social media, digital advertising, these lessons will help you create a portfolio. So you can even get little gigs on your own, even before you graduate. I've had students that have done that have got little side hustles of creating social media posts or other kind of marketing pieces before they even graduate. So this is the piece that we're going to use. So I did a search for a wooden table on a blurry background, right? So this was the one image that I chose right now for my background. I could choose a lot of different things. I could choose a cafe background. I could choose a lot of different things. So Notice my long tail search, wooden table with a blurry background. Now, if we look at this, the reason why I like this is because there isn't anything important out of a square format, right? So if I were to grab my rectangular marquee tool, hold down my shift key, and create a square, doesn't show it right there. You can see anywhere I would move this square, it would kind of look the same. So the format of this being a rectangle doesn't really come into any sort of play. Okay, so I'm just going to deselect that. So that is going to be my background. Now, one thing that I want to show you how to do, so I just did a file open. I downloaded this and went to Photoshop and did a file open right here, and it opened up this file. Now, Joe is asking me about what is the difference of taking that file. So if I were just to take a file, say, let me just come from here and come here and take this project 2 file and drag it down into my Photoshop. Now, when I do that, what could happen is, it didn't happen right now because I don't know why, but it could open it up as a smart object, which smart objects don't allow you to edit everything in the same way. So I recommend not doing that. If it downloads onto your desktop, not taking that icon and dragging it down into Photoshop, but instead do a file open. So right now I have 3 files open. I've got my Southern Tier that I downloaded. I've got this background, and then there is my untitled one, right? So I've got 3 files open. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I want to bring this file into my untitled file. There's a few ways. There's always more than one way you can do something in Photoshop. I'm going to show you what I think is the easiest way and another way that you can do it. Before I do that, I'm just going to also come up to image. Now I can go to the bottom corner, but this you can see it a little bit more in the back. Image size. We can see this is a pretty damn large photo image. It's 101 inches at 72 inches, right? So that's pretty big, although this is about half of the pixel size that I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to use 150. So if this is half, then this has to be half. So this is about a 50 by 25 inch image that we're going to bring into our file. If we had this at 300, then we would divide it by 4. Then it would be like 25 by like about 10. So resolution matters. It's all directly proportional. I like to know this before I transfer that file. So I'm going to show you 2 ways that you could do it. You choose whichever way. There's other ways that you could do it as well. You could do a selection, copy to your clipboard, paste to your new file. So if I wanted to select this, we're learning about our selection tools. We could take our marquee tool and click, hold, and drag over that. Or you can memorize the keyboard shortcut command to select all. What do you think the keyboard shortcut command to select all is? Command A. Command A will automatically do this without even touching your mouse. So if we do a Command D to deselect and a Command A. So Command A, right now there's only one layer, the background layer, that I have to worry about, and I have to copy this to my clipboard, into my random access memory. What's the keyboard shortcut command to copy? Command C. So on my keyboard, I'm going to hold down the command button, I'm not going to let it go, and just type the letter C. Now on my clipboard, I have that piece. So here is my untitled layer that I just had. I can do a Command V to paste, and there it is there. Now you're like, wow, I don't really see anything. That's because this image was really large. That's why I like to know how big is this image, so I don't freak out when it's doing that. Now when this happens, we're looking at this at 50%. I like to bring it down much smaller than that. I'm going to bring it down to 10%. And the reason why is because it'll allow me to see when I do a Command T. What's a Command T going to do to this layer? It's going to transform it by scaling it. So transformation does a rotate and scale. This is why I bring it down to 10%. What I did was I just double clicked in the bottom left-hand corner where it says the percentage and typed in 10. Now from this bottom corner, I'm going to click, hold, and drag until my vertical height is in line, right? If I were to go any less, I would start to get a white banner here. So I want to make the vertical amount flooded in. So now I can, this is what I was saying, I can go left and right, and it really doesn't matter. But not all images will be like that. So you have to choose the right image that as you crop. So everything that you see on the side here, it's still there. I'm not cropping it. It's not the right word. It's just hidden. It's hidden off of your pasteboard. Whenever you want to make this transformation commit, you just either hit the checkbox up in your options bar, or you hit the return on your keyboard. Now I can come back to double clicking my hand tool. Double clicking your hand tool is a quick, fast way to bring it to fit to window without having to go to your zoom tool, right? If I go to double click the zoom tool, it shows me at 100%. So I can see what it's looking at 100%, but I kind of want to compose this so it's all fit into window. Now this is where I would take the layer 1 and double click it and type table or however you want to name it, just so it's not layer 1. Okay, Isabella?
What's the difference between doing what you just did with the image and placing it embedded?
So embedded, it's not that much different. So if you embed it, it's just like we did in lesson 1. But when you embed it, I'll show you what happens. So let's go to file. It's a good question. File, placed, and here is my image, and place that file. With that, the embedded piece, now let me just make this larger. When you embed it, it's a smart object. You know that it's a smart object. I don't know if you could see it from where you are, but there's this little badge here. Now, it doesn't matter. You could use that as a smart object. Smart objects are non-destructive. But let's say your image, you wanted to add something to it, just like we did in lesson 1 where we pushed that image over, we made a selection and wanted to extend that image. This wouldn't allow us to do that, right? So it'll work if I just want to keep it at this, and I'm not going to do anything else to it. I'm not going to add. You can do some other things, but things like extending it won't allow you to do it. So it's embedded in there, but it's a smart object. Smart objects are non-destructive. They're kind of attached to the original file that you had. Good question. But if you're just going to leave it at this, you can definitely do that. So that's a second way that you can add an image to your piece. Now, notice what it also does, when you embed an image, what it gives the name of the layer is the actual name of the file. So it's Vecteezy wooden table with a blurry background, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of a long name there. So very good question. Now, if you were to do a file place linked, what that does is it links, it does the same thing, but instead of embedding that file, it embeds a representation of that file. And you always have to keep that file in the same place that you linked it from, right? So if you took it out of your folder that's called downloads for project, and somehow you move it out somewhere else, the next time you open it up, it's going to say this file is missing. So you have to keep that navigation the exact same. If anyone has ever worked in InDesign, it's the same thing. When you import a file into InDesign, you have to keep that navigation the exact same. I'm going to show you a third way to do that. So Isabella brought up a second way. The third way that I like to use is I like to view more than one file at a time. That's why it's important that I have this file at the very end. When I view more than one file open at the same time, it comes off of this end file, right? So it's viewing it from this end file. So if I come up to the Vector Easy file, and I come up to Window, Arrange, to Up Vertical. got it right here on the board. To view two active open files, window, pull down menu, arrange, two up vertical. What this is going to do is it's going to open up two files at the exact same time within the same window. There they are. Here's my untitled one and the vector easy file side by side. Now, a way that I can do this, I'm just going to click on this one. You know which file that you're in by looking at the layers panel, right? So right now I'm in this one because there's only one layer. If I click here, you'll see that there's two layers. So let me just hide both of these layers so I can see them. Now I could take these layers right now, it's at 50, and bring this maybe to 25. So it's a little bit smaller. And I'm gonna bring this one, we'll bring this one down to 10. So it's a little bit smaller so you can kind of see them. Now, with this one, all I have to do, I'm actively in this file here, not in the untitled one, is take this layer and click, hold, and drag that layer into the new document. Okay, and there it is. Now, if you have 5 files open, notice if I go to Window, Arrange, I can go all the way up to 6 up. So say I'm doing a composite, I do these often, like for a newsletter. There's always, at least once every other month, there's new employees who have joined the team, right? And there's always at least 6 to 10 of them. And I make a composite image of all of the employees that have joined the team. So I do 6 up, transfer 1 over at a time. Bring 1 over, close it, bring 1 over, close it. So it's an easy way instead of copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. Just an easy way to do it. So now that it's in here, I can close this vector easy out if I wanted to. I'm going to keep it open just so I can show you one other thing. When you're done with this and you're done, with the 2 up, you're going to go back to Window, Arrange, and Consolidate to all tabs. That means bring it to the one that you have active. So that's how you get out of it. Okay, so I'm going to come back. I was active in that one. So this is where I'm going to name it that same thing, title again. I'm going to take these 2 out just not to confuse us because we already did the steps that we needed to do. Anytime you want to delete a layer, I'm just selecting those 2 layers, and within my layer panel, I can hit the trash button, or I can come up to my layer options menu, the little hamburger. I'll call it a hamburger because it looks like a Big Mac to me. And I can come to delete layers, and it'll ask me, and yes. I always like to keep my file clean. I don't like to have a bunch of layers that I'm not going to use. Now, we've got our background in there. It's at the very bottom. If I were to come to the Southern Brewing, my flat file, excuse me, do the same, Window, Arrange, 2 up vertically. Now it puts those in there. If, for example, the vector easy was on this side and the untitled was in the middle, it would view the 2, not this one that we created, but the one that's on the end. So it matters in your document bar which file is at the end, right? So let's just look at this and come back to Window, Arrange, Consolidate to tabs, to all tabs. Let me just move this one over on this side. So if I were to go to Southern Tier, Window, Arrange, Window, Arrange 2 up vertical, it's showing me these 2 because this one is on the end. So it matters which one in your document tab is on the end. If I just close this one, it'll consolidate. I'm just going to do don't save. It's just going to consolidate to 1 tab. Okay, so now I just have 2 files open. My untitled file that has the background in it. Once I get that background in it, I don't need to have that other file open and taking up memory. So I'm going to close it. The more files you have open, the slower Photoshop will run. Especially if you're on your computer at home and it might not be the most powerful computer, it's a good idea to have only the files open that you need. All right, so now let's start in on some of our selection. Okay, so I'm just going to plug away with these. The first one that I kind of want to do, and let's see, will be this bag of beans. Now, since I've got a table already, now if I chose a different background, I could use this and make it square and not have to worry about anything, but I chose as the background something that already has the table. So I only want to select the bag with the beans spilling out. Anyone have a suggestion on what tool I might want to use? Let me make this a little bit bigger so all of you can kind of see in the back. Oh, that's just a little bit too big. All right, that's kind of good. Who'd like to make a suggestion of a selection tool that I would use to select those beans and the bag?
Quick selection that the image.
Quick selection. And what kind of selection is a quick selection? It's very good. Thank you, Libby. It's an edge-based selection, so it's looking for the edge. So there is some really nice distinctive edge in here. Now, there's also some fuzzy stuff with this burlap bag. So what might I want to consider when I'm making my selection? What softens the edge of a selection?
Feathering.
Feathering. So feathering will make that edge a little bit softer and transparent. So my quick selection tool is at the top. It's the very first tool. Now with this, notice that quick selection in my options bar does not have a feather option. That means if I'm going to feather, I have to do it after I make my selection. Okay, so know that if you're going to do any sort of feathering. So quick selection tool. I think right now I have object selection. So there we have it there. I also like to have this enhance the edge clicked on. That'll just make my edge a little bit better. Now remember, quick selection tool is a brush. If we're trying to get more minute types of selections, you're going to make your brush smaller. Does anyone remember from our keyboard how we can enlarge or decrease the size of our brush? It's on our keyboard.
You use the brackets.
The brackets, very good, Joe. Left and right brackets. So there too, it just helps you as you're performing your selection. Now, the thing that I like about the quick selection, if you look, is that it has this plus in the middle. So if we want to add to our selection, we do not have to hold down the shift key. If you're doing that with another tool, you have to hold down the shift key to add your selection. So you could take this in small bites, right? So I'm going to click, hold, and drag. Okay, I might want to release a little. I'm going to release, and the reason why I'm going to release, this is where you can get your zoom tool in, space bar to get your hand tool. You're going to start to see all these tools are going to work together. I'm going to come back to my quick selection tool, and with my, now look, this is a very big brush. With my right bracket, I can make my brush smaller, and that's so I can make my selection a little bit more specific. With this, I'm just clicking once. I'm not click, hold, and drag. This is where the space bar comes in handy to move this around. So I'm just going to click. So I don't have to hold down any other key. So I can come down this way. Now, I want to come to the edge of this because I don't want this table to come in. I just want to follow the edge and of the coffee beans. And I'll zoom back out in a second. I'm just clicking. So I'm going to come back to fit to image and then maybe zoom up just a little bit more. Come back to my tool and click, hold, and drag. Now, as I'm doing this click, hold, and drag, I might get pieces that I don't want. But remember, we can add or take away from our selection, which that looks like what just happened. I just got all of this table in here. So I'm going to go back and I have to delete that. So I don't have to do anything right now as I'm adding to my selection. Because this is an edge-based tool, I'm going to try to stay and follow an edge, right? This is edge detection. It's detecting the edge. Now I can go back. There we go. All right, so I've got almost, here's another one, here's another little piece. So I'm looking for the marching ants, right? I can bring this, if I want to come over, get this bean here. I can come back and try to get this bean here. There's a nice little shadow. I'm gonna try to get this bean. I'm not holding down any shift key. I'm just click, hold, and drag on that bean. It's getting the shadow, which that's okay. I can cast a shadow. Now, what I want to do is I want to delete this piece here of this table. So what key now do I have to hold down? What key do you hold down if you want to delete from your selection? Option. Very good, Isabella. Thank you. Option key. So let me just make this a little bit bigger so you can see the difference. So option, when I hold option, look at the center of my brush. It changes from plus to minus. So here's my option key. Okay, and I'm going to hold that down. And now again, I'm going to follow the edge. So now it's getting more than I want. So there's going to be a little dance that I'm going to have to do of adding and subtracting, right? So I just have to be very patient where it's going to jump back and forth. So you just kind of have to be patient. Now, Photoshop does learn of what you want. So if I want to bring this in a little bit, now I can also try to come back and get some of this out. Okay, so if I want to get some of this out here, this dark shadow, maybe I can do that while I am in the other piece, right? So maybe option here, just let's see what happens. No, I've got to add a little bit more. So I'm just going to keep it at that. Okay, so I'm going to come back, fit to window. I'm going to come to window, arrange, to up vertical. Okay, now with my move tool, I am going to click, hold, and drag, and I'm going to move this, just drag that selection into my new file, right? Just like we did in lesson 3, just drag that selection into my new file. Now it's up to you how you want to work. If you want to separate everything out and bring it in, or if you want to work a little bit at a time. So let's just say I'm going to come to arrange, consolidate to all tabs, turn this background back on. And now I'm going to take this and double click where it says layer 1 and call it coffee beans. Okay, so the coffee beans are on top of the table. And again, I want to bring this to the side because this side here is very harsh. Now, one thing I forgot to do, which I can come back and do it just so I could show you how I did it. Let me come back to the Southern Tier copy, is I forgot to feather this. So if I wanted to feather it a little bit, feathering is under select, because it has to do with the selection, modify, and feather. Shift F6 is a way to do that. Now, again, you have to know which size resolution. 2 pixels is a pretty fair amount to feather that. So if I were to go to feather, okay. And now let's come back up to window, arrange, to up vertical, and let's just compare the two. I'm going to go to window, arrange, consolidate, and now zoom up on both of these and see if there is any sort of difference between the two. You can kind of see at the top that it's a little bit softer around the edges, not a huge difference. So 2 pixels didn't make it look anything crazy. So I'm just going to close off layer 1 and we'll go with a one that's not feathered. So from here, I want to bring this to the edge, and maybe I want to do a Command T to scale this up a little bit, right? And place it wherever I want. Return. Now there's a tool that's similar to the magic wand that's called a magic eraser. So if there's something with a color that I want to try to erase, there is something that's called the magic eraser. It works the same way as the magic wand. So if, say, you got a little bit of a white background in there that you didn't want, you can delete by choosing a specific color. So the eraser works the same way. So looking at this, it looks kind of good. Now, let's say I want to add an adjustment layer to this, right? So adjustment layers are something that are specific to every layer, right? So I want to try to get the lighting, the contrast, the brightness, all to kind of look the same. Right now, as I'm looking at this, it doesn't look too bad. So you get your adjustment layers. I do not have my panel up. Now, when I'm doing compositing, I like to have my adjustments up, view on the screen. So it's under Window Adjustments. Okay, so here are all of the adjustments. The adjustments apply to the specific layer that you're on. They are non-destructive, meaning that once you make them, it doesn't change it forever. You can turn them on or off, or you can go back and modify them even more. If we look at some of the adjustments, brightness and contrast. So if your image is a little bit less bright or too dark or too light, this is how you can adjust it. If the contrast on one is a little higher, meaning the edges are a little bit more in view, you can do it from there. Levels. Does anyone know what levels adjusts? Has anyone ever heard that term, levels? Levels is kind of similar to brightness in that it adjusts the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights. It's something if I download an image or if a photographer supplies me with an image, every image that I'm creating a composite or if I'm creating something for a brochure or social media, I always check and adjust the levels. So let's choose levels. Notice that the levels, I'm going to do a Command Z. Oops, Command Z. And I'm going to take this out. All right, so let's come back to the levels. And the levels is attached to this coffee beans. Now, let me bring my properties menu up. Remember, the properties menu is one that I said in the beginning of this class that it's a good idea to have this properties panel up. What this is showing is the histogram of the levels. It's measuring the shadows, midtones, and highlights. What this shows is the distribution of those. So if you see your histogram ends here and your highlights have this big black space, that means you could probably push the highlights up a little bit. Same with the shadows. So this image has a good distribution of levels of shadows, midtones, and highlights. Now, if you're just starting and you don't feel so comfortable, like adjusting them this way, you can kind of move it. Now, look what's happening. It's adjusting all of the background as well. So we have to make sure that we come back and we make that adjustment. So right now, we should just be looking at the beans itself. If you are in doubt, you could just hit auto. Now, with the auto, nothing much really happened because this is a well-adjusted photo. It has good shadows, midtones, and highlights. You can add more than one adjustment layer for a specific layer. So if I want to maybe add some hue and saturation to this, hue will change the color of something. The colors look fine. What do you think the saturation adjusts? What do you think?
The darkness or the bright?
Not the darkness per se. What does the word saturation mean? Like if a sponge is saturated with water.
Too much. It's overabundance.
It has the intensity of the water. So saturation will adjust the intensity of the color. So I do some work for real estate agents, right? So if they have a picture of the property and some of the things I might boost the saturation on is the grass. I want the grass to look really green. If it's a property that's on the ocean, I might boost the saturation on the sky and the water so it looks really blue. If you ever see like ads for vacation spots, for airlines or something, they really boost the saturations up. So saturation will take the intensity. Now what it's doing is it's taking the intensity of everything. So what I want to do is there's this little icon here that will clip it. So it just changes the saturation of my layer itself, right? So it's not doing the whole background. Now, what do you think will happen if I take all of the saturation out? It'll become a black and white photo. Very good. Right? So no saturation means black and white. So you can adjust the saturation of your image. So if you want your image to be a little bit more bold in color, you can add some saturation. I'm going to bring the properties down. Now I said that these levels are non-destructive, right? So you can take them on, turn them on or off, right? So they're non-destructive. So those are adjustment layers. It's always a good idea, at least just to check the levels on your layer. It's not a bad idea to do that, right? So those are your adjustment layers. So now I've got one layer on there. So it'll go a little bit faster now. So let's come back to our southern tier and let's choose out, let's come with a beer. So we have to choose everything that's in there and we can add other things. So if I wanted to select out this big bottle of beer, what tool would I use?
Object selection?
Object selection is a good one. Really good, Joe. So object selection. So with the object selection, I just have to click, hold, and drag. Now it's close to something else, but it will snap to the edge, right? Now I don't need to feather this because I want the edge to be really nice and crisp and clean. So arrange to up vertical. I'm going to take that. Now you can't really see it from here. So I'm going to take my move tool. Remember, if I use my command key, I don't have to go up and change the move tool. Click, hold, and drag. All right, let's come back to another one. So maybe what I'm going to do next is just start bringing everything over one at a time. Now, if you want to use the object selection tool for all of them, that's fine. Or you can try to use some other ones. Totally up to you. So maybe with this one again, object selection tool will work. Boom, command key down, click, hold, and drag. All right, so we've got 1, 2 of them. So I'm going to come back to this, deselect, hold down my space bar. Let's try the espresso pot. Object selection could work on that as well. Not bad, pretty good, right? So I don't care which tool you use, but it's always a good idea to practice with other tools because not all the time some of these easy tools will work. So click, hold, and drag. Okay, so I've got almost everything in. Let's see what else. Let's come over. How about this Blackwater Imperial Stout? Which one will we use for that? What's a really easy one? This one?
You did it with Buffalo, with Bills, right?
Geometric marquee tool. So it's a geometric selection. So this is pretty easy. I just have to click, hold, and drag. It's in the shape of a rectangle. Not too many things are like that. Hold down my command key. Click, hold, and drag. All right. How about this Southern Tier logo? Elliptical marquee tool could be the same thing. So with this, I can maybe zoom up a little bit. I'm going to deselect and zoom up a little, just so you can kind of see in the back. I'm going to deselect, bring this over. Now with this one, because it's so close to the edge, maybe I could try to start from the center. If I want to start from the center and expand out, which key do I have to hold down? Shift. I'm going to hold the shift key down. That was my next question because it looks like it's a perfect circle. But if I want to go from the center, I'm going to hold down my shift and my option, right? So I'm going to hold down my shift key, I'm going to deselect, with my ring finger, my option key with my middle finger, and then if I need to reposition, whoa, I'm going to hold, oh, darn. Let me try this. Command 0. I'm going to do this window arrange consolidate because it might be a little bit easier to do that. So let's try this again. Deselect. Now, you could definitely use your object selection. I'm going to try instead of that, I'm just going to try from the outside. Okay? I think that's a little easier. And then with my space bar down, release the space bar, and bring it down. Now, you could use the object selection, but this just gets your skills honed a little bit better, right? So let's say I'm just going to do a Command C and come back to this window here and do a Command V. All right, so let's come back up to here. So let's see what we have left to do. I think the only one left we have is this other Southern Tier typeface logo. This isn't like an icon logo, but this is also called a typeface logo. A lot of brands have two kinds of logos, a typeface logo and an iconic type of logo. So that's one of them. So if you think of Target, when you see the typeface of Target, you always can identify their typeface. Their iconic logo is that Target itself, right? Sometimes it can have both of them in there. This might be a little bit more difficult because it's kind of small and it has, if we look at it, some really kind of distinctive pieces in it. Now, if you can't get all of this, I will be okay with you just choosing the typeface part. So if for some reason you can't get this little piece in there, that's okay. Another thing that you can do, if we look at this, look how pixelated it is as I zoom up on it. I'm looking at this at almost 500 times what you should be looking at it. So what I have to do sometimes is someone will say if I have a client that uses brands, like I have a client that does like aesthetics. So they use all different kinds of brands of Botox and fillers. And he'll say, oh, use Juvederm, use this, use that. I'm like, well, do you have the logos? Oh, I can get them offline. He gives them to me offline, and they're not high resolution logos. So I have to try to look at this, so say where it says brewing company, and I might just have to find a typeface that's very similar to that to fill it in, even if it's small. But with this, maybe I will use something that deals with color. Now, I could try the object selection tool. We've been trying to use that and see what the object selection tool does. That works pretty well. It didn't get the brewing company part in there, but I can also add that. I could also maybe put it into my design where I don't want to select everything out. Maybe I will just keep it as a kind of a rectangular logo this way, so I don't have to deselect. Maybe I just want to bring it in kind of like as a banner type of thing, like this, and just select it all. Going to be up to you. This is what I'm going to do with this, and I'm going to show you what else I'm going to do to kind of make it look a little bit different. So I'm going to do a Command V. And let's try this again, Command V. There it is there. So now, what I want to do with all of these is turn it on and off. So I'm going to call this Logo 1, because I have two logos. Turn this one on and off. This is Logo 2. Turn this one on and off. I'm going to call this Black Water. Let's see, turn it on and off. That's Espresso. And then turn this one on and off. This, I'm going to call it 4-pack. And then this one is Bottle. Okay, so I've renamed all of my layers. Now it's up to me to start to compose this. So maybe I'm going to look to see, can I make this as a digital ad? Let me just, for the heck of it, let's see, I don't think I have it up there. Go to this brand's Instagram page. This is set up just like an Instagram ad, that it's square. So I might want to look just to see kind of what some of their Instagram type of marketing looks like. So, you know, I just said maybe we're going to go through. So here's one with the beer with some chicken wings. This is in Western New York where chicken wings are there. So here's another one. I wish I could get, let's see, can I hide this? I wish I could hide this because you can't really see the artwork underneath it. So I just like to kind of get a feel of what some of their marketing looks like. So they have the product really big front and center. So I'm using this for kind of inspiration. Again, front and center. Here's one that's very similar to this. This Perry's Ice Cream is a brand of ice cream that's a local brand. So, you know, you could see some of the things that they've incorporated. I just kind of like to look to see what's their brand. What kind of things do they do for their brand? So I'm going to try to follow some of that with this. Now I'm going to use my Move tool. I want to make sure that my auto select in my options bar is on. because what I want to click on, I want to make it work for me, right? So I'm going to move this to the top, move this over. Now remember, you can add other things, but you can't take any of these away. So you can add some other things. So maybe I want this to be big and front center, just like they just had there. So that's going to be placed here. Now, maybe my mocha pot, I don't want it to be on top of the beans, but maybe I want it to look like it's behind the beans, right? So I'm going to take my mocha pot, here's my espresso pot, and I am going to place it in my stacking order below the beans, right? Here's my espresso pot, here's my coffee beans. Now I can make this a little bit larger so it looks like those beans are in front of the mocha pot, right? Now another thing that I can do, if I don't like the way this mocha pot is facing, I can do something that's called a flip horizontal, right? And that's under my edit, and it's a transform. So we've been doing a free transform, right? What does free transform do? Scales and rotates. Command T, those are the only things that it does. If you go up to edit, transform, you can see the scale and rotate, but there's also some other transformations that you can make. Adding perspective. If I want something to look like it has some perspective. Adding a skew. Like skew is like when you see the Star Wars, how the text looks like it's going back. So it's kind of skewed back that way. Another one at the very bottom is flip horizontal and flip vertical. Flip horizontal will flip something on its axis horizontally. This does not work if, for example, if I were to flip this horizontally, because it won't work if there's text, because it'll like mirror it. So if somebody has like a big logo, a text logo on their shirt, it'll look like they're in a mirror and flip it backwards. But sometimes you want to make something go the other way, just for the sake of design. So maybe I want this handle in the back. So transform, edit, transform, flip horizontal. What flip vertical does is, you see Apple uses this a lot. So say they have a picture of an iPhone and we're using an iPhone. We have a white background and you want to make it look like there is a reflection of that phone. Make two layers of this, flip this one vertical, and it looks like it's the reflection of the phone. If you have a picture of somebody in front of water and the water is fake and you want to make it look like their reflection is in the water, flip vertical. And then you take the opacity down. So that just makes it look like there's a reflection that the table is shiny. Again, you're creating that artwork. So it's a good thing that I like using flip horizontal and flip vertical. Now, we can also, if we want to bring this little mocha somewhere in here. Now this is one where if we bring this up, notice that I didn't get this little white spot out of here. So this is where I was saying I can use my magic eraser tool, right? And I'm just going to click within that white and now it's gone. So I can choose where I want this piece of stout to be, this like little 4-pack here. I could bring it at the bottom. I'm just going to do this fast for time. I got like 5 minutes left. I got my Southern Tier logo. I'm not sure where I want to place that with, but what I want to show you with this Southern Tier logo here at the bottom is maybe I can do something with it to bring all the way to the bottom or all the way to the top. So I think I'm going to put it to the top because I'd rather have a logo at the top. So what I'm going to do behind that is under logo 1, I'm going to create a new layer. So just like our rectangles layer, right? And I am going to zoom up on this and I want to take my foreground color to this black color that's already here. All right, so that's my foreground color. It might not be the exact black that we have behind it, but that's what I'm looking for because I'm going to show you what I want to do to kind of just experiment with things. Now, I try things and they don't always work. So I can say, okay, let me go on to something else, but I just will apply all of my ideas that I have. So I am going to, on this layer here, I'm going to call it rectangle, just like in ANGLE. In lesson 1, there's that rectangle file or layer. I'm going to click, hold, and drag and come across the whole background. I'm going to do just like we did in lesson 1, edit, fill, and I am going to fill with my foreground color that I just added that black. Now you might say, why is he doing that? Because now it's just going to look like it's on a black background. Now, someone last week, I said, how do you create an inverse selection? In the keyboard shortcut command is Shift Command I. What does an inverse selection do? Selects the opposite of what you have selected. I think it was Jennifer last class that said Command I. And I said, that's a little bit different. That's called an invert, not an inversion. Invert just takes the opposite colors of what you have. So right now, what's black is going to be white, and what's white is going to be black. Now, I chose this black because I want it to be the exact same thing. So here's logo 1 in Command I. So it still doesn't quite look right. That's okay. I can make that adjustment. I'm going to click this and come back into this. And now in my rectangle, I'm going to reselect it. I thought it would have worked, but it didn't. That's all right. And I'm going to edit, fill, foreground color. All right. So now I've kind of have something that I'm able to use that logo without having to make a really hardcore selection. I didn't really like that white background with the black text, so I inverted it. Now with this, what I have to do is I have to take this rectangle and I have to put it below the bottle. Okay, now because it's below the bottle, it's connected. What I want to do is it becomes connected with this. So I'm going to take these two because I don't need these anymore. And I'm going to delete those and take that rectangle and bring it behind the bottle. All right, so now it looks like the bottle is on top of that rectangle. I don't have to keep that southern tier really close. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to create some guidelines, right? Because I'm going to start to place things around. So with this, maybe I'm going to choose a 100 pixel margin. So there's, I'm going to try to get close, 100. So this is at 1800, so I'm going to come to 1700, as close as I can. If you're a couple pixels off, not a big deal. So here is my, that's at 115. Now, if you can't get it exactly, what you can come up and go to View, Guides, New Guide, and I'm going to create a horizontal at 100 pixels. All right. Now, while I'm doing my horizontal, View, Guides, New Guide is still at horizontal. We know this is 1800 pixels. So I'm going to do this at 1700. So now I've got all of my guides up. What I don't, want to do is put anything outside of those guides that's not running off of the page. So these beans are okay to go on the other side because they're running off the page. I don't want my logo here to come to the other side. Now, it's a little bit above of where I wanted it to be, so maybe I can take this black rectangle, do a Command T. I'm going to hold my Shift key down because I want it to be just a little bit down farther, so my transformation doesn't stay equal on all sides. And now we're just going to start to arrange these a little bit more. Okay, now I could, if I want to, place this right on top of here. I don't really care. I just want to see that you can make these selections. So I'm going to look for these. So maybe with this, that selection on the beer bottle was a little bit not as clear as this one. I'm totally fine with that. I can move this into place. Totally okay with that, of you doing that. And now maybe Blackwater, I want this to be my Blackwater logo. I want it to be behind my espresso pot. Again, I could take this, Command T. Maybe let's just place it all the way across, or, it's okay if it's a little bit behind it because you can still kind of read what it says. I would take much more time to compose this. I just kind of want to give you an idea of some of the possibilities that you would have. So I've got all the pieces in here. I would probably make this a little bit different, but I'm running out of time just so you can get an idea of what I am looking for when it comes to composing something. So I might change the position of places, change the scale of things. I might want to put this behind this and make it much larger. The last thing that I'm going to show you before we leave, is something that's called layer styles. Okay? So layer styles are things that you can add to your layer to make them more visible or easily viewed, right? So layer styles are things like drop shadows, like outer glows, like color overlays. So for example, let's take this bottle. If I want to add a layer style to this, there's a couple ways that you can do it. At the bottom of your layer panel, there's this little FX, and I have that on the board there, that you can add a layer style. If you just click on this, it's going to ask you which layer style do you want to choose. I personally like just double clicking on the right hand side of this layer, and it'll bring up the layer style dialog box. So for example, if I want to add an outer glow, let me move this over to this side. Outer glow is like having something backlit, right? Like the light source is behind you or is behind whatever object it is. So if I have to look for outer glow, I see inner glow. Must be at the bottom. Yep, there it is there. Now, in order for your options to come up within the dialog box here, you have to have both the check mark and the layer selected. These are all the different options that you can have for that. So it takes a little bit of playing around with it, right? So right now we've dealt with blending modes, right? We kind of went into blending modes a little bit in lesson 1. Blending modes will allow you to change some of the things. I'm just going to bring it on to normal, right? And I'm going to take the color. Right now the color is at gray. I don't want a gray light, but I want a white light. So I'm going to click the very top left. Click OK. Now we have the technique is softer or more precise and spread in size. So you can see as I bring the spread out, and the size will kind of diffuse it, right? So if I want to make this, I don't want any sort of piece here. I want the opacity to be a little bit less. So if I just want this to pop out a little bit from that background, especially even on that black piece, I can put an outer glow. Just kind of pops it out a little bit. If I don't want an outer glow, maybe I want a drop shadow. I'm going to turn off the line. So maybe I want it to look like there's a little drop shadow at the bottom. So drop shadow. The cool thing with a drop shadow is on some computers it works and some it doesn't. Now it's not working on this. Let's see. No, it doesn't work on mine, but some it will. You could try it on yours. On my computer, it's not working. If you click with inside this, you can move the drop shadow, the distance, however you want. So you can move this down or up, but mine at home on my computer, you could do it right ad hoc by clicking on it. But what it does is just creates a nice little drop shadow. Sometimes if you go like a really large spread and size, it'll just kind of make the background a little bit darker. So if you don't want a very specific drop shadow, that's a way to make the background a little bit darker, is just to bring the spread really large. But the distance is how you can make that happen. So layer styles are something that you can apply to a layer individually to enhance it. Now, if we look at our layer panel, there is the effect. It's non-destructive. Just like an adjustment layer, you could turn it on, you could turn it off. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to show you those as you start to compose your composition here. Any questions on what I've done or anything about what this project entails?
What's the bottle, the top of the bottle, is that okay? It went beyond.
Yeah, so I would adjust that. That's a good question. I would adjust that down. So I put that in before I create it. So I would adjust it so it's there. Exactly. And then Command. Now, another thing where I don't like is when things come this close to the edge here. So I might even make this a little bit larger. Command T. Now I'm holding my Shift key down to make this not be precise. Like if I weren't to hold my Shift key down, it would go from the sides. Not that it matters because what's off to the side is not viewed anyways. So now maybe if I do this here, I could also take this here and put this on and now do a Command I with that. And now, maybe have this go a Command T, be a little bit smaller and come whatever. So it takes a lot of like playing around with however you want to design your layout. That was a good question. Any other questions? Yes, Libby.
So you're doing the arrange the two vertical up. How do you get back to just seeing one?
Good question. So we had arranged two vertical up. So that puts both of these up side by side. When you're ready just to go back to the one, you do it the same way, window, arrange, but you go to consolidate to all tabs. Okay, whichever one you have active, it looks like right now, I don't see my layer panel. Kind of hard to tell. I don't see my layer. Oh wait, I'm on this one here, right? Because I can tell there's only one background layer. So if I go to Window, Arrange, Consolidate, it's going to just bring it to this one here. Good question. So that gives you a little close to 2 hours, a little less than 2 hours to either finish. Let's come back to this real quick. Come back to your assignments to either finish match a proverb if you haven't done it, or the other one is the quiz. So those are the two that are due today. All the other ones you have plenty of time. So those are the two, quiz and match a proverb, that are due by the end of day today. Any other questions before I get you loose? It's your time. You can stay, you can go. Jennifer.
For the book exercise, lesson 3, it says to work on the file that's already there, but there's nothing there.
Lesson 3?
Yeah.
That's the one that you get from Files. So you're going to come to Files. I might have put it in before, so you're going to go to Files, Classroom in a Book, just like we do with all of them. Lesson 3, and then you're going to go to Lesson 3 Book Exercise. I might have had that embedded in previous classes, and it could have changed, so I uploaded this one. Good question. All of the files for all of the book exercises are found here in your files under each of the respective lessons.
In the pics are also on that lesson?
The what?
The pictures. Or the pictures we're going to use to embed. Do we get them online or?
For lesson, which lesson?
3.
For lesson 3, they're right here.
Okay.
So the book exercise one, they're right here. Now, there's also the shells to flatten vegetables that I used for our other exercises, but lesson 3 exercise file is right here. So if you click on this and then go to download and allow, and there it is right there. So this is the lesson 3 file that you're going to be working on for the book exercise. Any other questions? It's your time. You can stay, you can go. If you want me to look at anything that you're working on, just get my attention. If you need any help with a quiz, same thing. Oh, if somebody came in late, let me know so I can mark you here. Let me just